ladies and gentlemen, Hannibal. Hannibal, how you doing, man?
I'm doing wonderful. Just hit 201,000 subscribers after only hitting 200,000 subscribers on the Hannibal TV YouTube channel less than a week ago. So happy that it's continuing to grow.
Well, I'm right behind you. I'm at 266. So, yeah,
Well, it's a process.
yeah, I'm catching up. I think I'm right behind you. I'm gonna hit that. I'm gonna really hit that milestone pretty soon.
There you
Uh,
go.
yeah. So anyway, so let's get started. For the people that don't know you, where are you from?
I am from Canada, Ottawa, which is the capital of Canada.
Okay. So how'd you get started in pro wrestling?
I started off as an amateur wrestler. I'd wanted to be a pro wrestler as a kid. Was a national champion in amateur wrestling. Had scholarship offers, but I really wanted to go into pro wrestling, so I turned them down. At the time, Eric Bischoff was doing a show called Mat Rats in Calgary with Harry Smith, Natalia, TJ Wilson, Ted Hart, and a long list of others, Rene Dupree, Rick Victor, a lot of wrestlers that went on to become stars. Jack Evans was also involved in it. Nothing came of the pilot. There was a pilot shot. They told me to move out there because they said that the show was going to be picked up, but it didn't get picked up. So I stayed out there for a little bit, ran out of money, came back to this end of Canada, and I only live about 2 hours from Montreal. So I trained with Jacques Rougeau for a year. And then after that year, I was living at home. I saved up enough money to move back to Calgary and train at the Dungeon and wrestle for Stampede Wrestling. So that's how I really started my career.
Yeah, I read that you did a huge stint in Canada, but what I'm more interested about is what you did in Puerto Rico. Now, every wrestling fan knows the chaos that goes in Puerto Rico. Everybody's heard stories, and a lot of people don't know this, but you was actually the tag team champion out in Puerto Rico. Am I correct?
I was the Intercontinental Champion in IWA, and I was two-time WWC Puerto Rico Tag Team Champions. I was there off and on for about 4 years. I did a full year in IWA, then I went over to WWC off and on for 3 years. And yeah, I was usually in the main events the entire time I was in Puerto Rico, feuded with Ricky Banderas, Eddie Colon, Orlando Colon, James Storm. I wrestled over there. A lot of Puerto Rican wrestlers like Ray Gonzalez and Thunder and Lightning. So I enjoyed my time out there. IWA I liked better than WWC because WWC would screw around with your pay, where IWA was always on time and always paid you in full. They were more professional, and the crowds were actually bigger in IWA. But as time went on, the economy got bad there and the crowds became less. But we'd often have crowds of over 5,000 when I was there.
What were the fans like?
The fans were pretty crazy. Not as bad as they were in the 80s, but they would throw stuff at you. Sometimes they'd come after you. I actually had more fan attacks in Canada than Puerto Rico, but they definitely took it more seriously in Puerto Rico. And particularly the IWA office wanted you to keep kayfabe amongst the fans. So you couldn't really associate with the fans too much. You drove in the Heels van and you went to the arena. You didn't sign autographs. You left the arena. You didn't talk to people. You just pushed your way through the crowd. They did have security, definitely, because there were some nights that the fans were really pissed.
Well, Rob, when I was researching you, noticed that you're a big Bruiser Brody fan, and did any of that what happened in 1988 impacted your decision to go to Puerto Rico?
No, because I actually didn't become a Bruiser Brody fan until like YouTube started. And when I had heard about that situation, but I went to Puerto Rico in 2005, and that was before you would have internet on your phone. When I wanted to use the internet in Puerto Rico, like to tell you something about those days, you would have to go to an internet cafe and pay by like the 15 minutes to go on the internet. So I rarely even went on the computer in those days. I didn't even have social media. So I had heard about the Brody stuff. Invader was actually the booker for IWA. And then, of course, I worked for Carlos Colon. But it wasn't until the shoot interview clips started popping up on YouTube, probably from 2010 on, and now I've been one of the ones that have investigated it the most and put the most clips because I was interested in it. I do remember being in that locker room in Bayamon. We wrestled there 3 times when I was working for WWC, 3 or 4 times, and I remember there was like always an eerie feeling in that locker room. I never could bring some of the wrestlers would like always want to look into the shower room and be like, wow, this is where Brody was killed and stuff. But I could never bring myself to do that. I always had kind of a sick feeling in my stomach, but I didn't know the true story, hadn't heard Tony Atlas's version, never really knew anything about it other than something bad went down with Invader. And I didn't like Invader when I was in IWA, but I didn't get along bad with him. He was just like the authority figure. There was Bushwhacker Luke, Invader, Savio Vega, and Miguel Perez were the 4 bookers in IWA. And like if there was a disciplinary thing, it would be Invader that would talk to you. So I never really liked them,
Mhm.
but we didn't really clash much. We only clashed one time, and that was my very last night working for IWA when he thought it was kind of weird that they brought me to a TV taping and they didn't use me because it was my last night. And I said, "Can I go if you're not using me?" Because there's no air conditioning in arenas,
Mhm.
only in like the main arenas. And like if you're not using me, like I had a girlfriend there that I'd rather go home and have fun with her. But he was like a little mad. He's like, "Why would you want to leave? Why don't you want to stay for the whole show?" And I'm like, "Sorry, if you're not using me and you're still paying me, I'm gone if I don't have to be here." So that was the only real clash I had with him that night. But we didn't like each other necessarily, but we didn't have any problems working with each other. Now that I know all this, and I'm actually a huge fan of Bruiser Brody, I don't know if I could ever see him again in person because it would be bothersome to me. But at that time, I wasn't that familiar with the case. I'd hardly seen any Brody matches at that time either.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, you know, since you did do a lot of investigation, I've watched your videos on the Bruiser Brody incident. Did you ever try to reach out to Vader and, get his side?
I actually did ask Seth. I still might get that one day. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know if Invader really likes me because of all the investigating I've done. I'm sure he would not be. I would even be hesitant to go back there just because of all the investigating I've done on this and how many murders they have there on a regular basis and how easy it is to disappear there. But I have told Savio. Savio is still friends with Invader. And I told Savio I would like to interview Invader about this. He does still wrestle in the US in Florida sometimes. Believe it or not, they still book him in Florida, even at his age. He was wrestling there as late as last year. But I told Savio to ask him if he would do an interview with me, and Savio said he would, but he never got back to me. I am interviewing Savio next week, so maybe I'll follow up with Savio then about if Invader will talk to me.
But one thing, the first time I ever heard about you, Hannibal, I mean, you've been in the wrestling business for a very long time. And you got to understand, I tell that everybody in the wrestling business that I interview that, you got to understand, I don't look at wrestling like you do or Ricky Morton. I'm a fan. I don't know. I know fans today like to watch the shoe interviews, want to know how the blade, they use the talk, the slogans y'all use. I'm not that fan. I'm still watching as a sport. And sometimes knowing too much really hurts my way of watching professional wrestling. With that said, the first time I ever heard about you was the Abdullah The Butcher lawsuit. Uh, Correct me if I'm wrong. What happened was y'all had a series of matches. A thing professional wrestlers do in the ring to get blood. This is one of those times where, as a fan, I wish I didn't know, but I mean, everybody knows now. Y'all two would cut each other, and he would cut you, and he had a hepatitis, and he spread it to you, which cost you a WWE contract. Y'all had a lawsuit. It got settled.
It didn't get settled. We won 2 lawsuits, and the collection is still ongoing. He didn't settle it. There was a WWE lawsuit that was settled, but not Abdullah one.
Correction, yeah, the WWE settled with you because, I mean, you missed out on a great career in the WWE all because of what this man did. Your feelings towards Abdullah the Butcher today, is it still harsh feelings?
Oh yeah, I would if I could get away with it, I would love to just beat him to death with my bare hands. That would be fun. But we weren't actually cutting each other in wrestling for blading. What you do is you have a razor blade, and when the time is right, you cut yourself to produce the blood. And I've never had a problem blading, but I was never known really as a guy that would blade every single match like Abdullah. And I was tested before we started wrestling, about a year before we started wrestling each other, and I didn't have hepatitis. And Abdullah's blood records showed that he had it for at least 10 years, the same strain as me prior to wrestling me. And what happened in one of the matches that we had, without my permission, he took the same blade that he'd used on himself. I was already bleeding. There was no reason to do this other than he's obsessed with cutting. And he cut me with the same blade 5 times. And they measured it in court. It was about 40 seconds after he had cut himself. And the thing about hepatitis, if it's 2 people bleeding in the ring from small razor cuts, everyone's been cut with a razor. Blood is flowing outwards. The cuts are very small. It's very hard to actually get blood right in it. There is a percentage chance it could be transmitted that way. But when you share a razor blade with someone, you're taking your blood and you're putting your blood directly into their body. So the chances go up greatly. So that's why he was found guilty of negligence, assault, and battery. Negligence because he knew he had Hep C, and everybody knows that it's dangerous to share bloody razor blades and needles. You don't need to be a brain surgeon to figure that one out. Assault, he didn't have my permission to cut me. It's not an expected risk to go into a match and be assaulted with a hepatitis C infected needle. That's not common in wrestling. It never happens. And battery is his assault caused bodily harm to me. So that's what he was found guilty of. We won in Canada. We won in the States as well, in Georgia. He's been doing everything in his power to avoid paying. He sold one of his restaurants. He transferred properties. Unfortunately, there was a 2-year gap between winning in Canada and winning in the States. So we had time to move stuff around. So the collection is still ongoing, and I'm not gonna to let up on that. But yeah, he's not a man. He's just a coward and very shady. And the sad part about it is I had a WWE contract offer back when I was 26 years old, and that was taken away from me because I had hepatitis C. And then not only did I find out, hey, you're losing your dream job, you now have to battle hepatitis C, which I spent thousands and thousands of dollars getting cured of. Did one 24-week treatment, one 36-week treatment, and finally got cured. And I've been cured now since 2013.
Well, and the thing about Abdullah the Butcher, I've never seen a match he hasn't bled.
No,
And when you look at his forehead, it's like, man, you could have done it a different way. He had, I mean, I was a fan. You had some rest. He wasn't the guy that I was more of a Hulk Hogan guy.
right.
And The Rock, Sting, but definitely, I never cheered for the bad guys when I was a kid. He was, especially when he was in WCW. But it brings me an interesting point. Did y'all ever discuss? You said he didn't have your permission. Did y'all ever, like? I'm told, and I don't mean to offend you, but sometimes wrestlers go backstage and y'all discuss the match prior. So it was never discussed between him and you that, hey, look, we're gonna both get cut tonight. The phrase is we're both going to bleed or play tonight.
We knew that we were both going to bleed from our own cuts. There was he never said, hey, I'm going to cut you. I have hepatitis C. There's a risk I'm going to infect you. Watch out, I'm going to cut you. He was going to bleed from his cuts. I was going to bleed from mine. If he had told any of the promoters that we wrestled for, hey, I don't want to bleed, can Hannibal just bleed? I really don't think the promoters would have cared. And that way he wouldn't have even been risking infecting me unless he was accidentally cut. But yeah, no, there was no agreement for him to cut me. I thought he was my friend. I was a fan of him too. And put it this way, he liked me so much. I probably hold a lot of pinfall victories over him. Not many people can say they hold pinfalls over him. But when he found out I got signed by WWE, he actually screamed with joy on the phone when I told them. He was so happy that I got signed because he looked at me as a protege. So I definitely considered him a friend before all of this. So it's really unfortunate because he was a mentor to me. He definitely gave me a lot of advice and helped teach me how to be a good heel. So it's just unfortunate. Do I think that I just think he's crazy? I don't think he thinks about the consequence of his actions, and he's obsessed with cutting, and he's been doing it for so long. As you said, he started wrestling, I think, in like the 50s. So like it's just hard for him to not do his stupid cutting crap. But yeah, it's a bad situation, but at least I got cured of the disease and I've gone on to be my own boss and I'm growing. I haven't reached my peak yet at all. I have my own wrestling company, Great North Wrestling, and my YouTube channel has 130 million views. So I'm doing well on my own. So it wasn't a complete failure. It was just a setback.
Right. I have watched videos of him talking. He likes he's kind of a bully. I saw a video where he had two guys try to do a piece on him, and he pretty much told them like, look, now I didn't see it in person. On the video, it had like a little. We had to stop recording because Abdul said that we had to pay him X amount of dollars before we continue the production. So anybody that'll do something like that, I don't know if that was true or not. Maybe it was something to hype the video up. I wasn't there, but watching Beyond the Ring on the Bruiser Brody murder, you see how a group of people, like three different people, said this, and Abdul was like, "Well, no, that didn't happen." And everybody else says you was there, but if you never
Abdullah was
seen,
part of the office in WWC. So Abdullah would have been in on whatever conspiracy it was, and they supposedly owed Brody money. One of the reasons we won in court is because he lied on the record. He always continuously denied cutting me, even though we had it on tape that he cut me. So he never to this day has admitted that he cut me, and that's called lying on the record. So he doesn't even admit to this day that he cut me, and he's never publicly admitted he's had Hep C, even though his records are public.
So during the trial, you actually had video footage of the incident where he's actually cutting you.
Yeah, that's how I won, because I had that footage.
And he still denies it.
Yes. So that's called lying on the record, which
Perfect.
is a bad offense and like destroys his credibility. If he had at least admitted to doing it, he may have had a bigger chance, but he lied about it. I know he has contempt charges going against him now for not being cooperative. So whatever. He's not
Well,
being advised well legally.
I'm going to say this. I never met the man, but everything I've seen, I do trust your opinion on it because I have the same opinion, but you know him personally. Abdullah the Butcher is not only the famous person that you've been in the ring with. You've been in the ring with people like Kevin Nash, AJ Styles, Al
Sid.
Snow. I'm sorry?
Psycho Sid.
I was going to get to Sid Vicious. Oh,
Okay.
yeah, Psycho. Well, Sid Vicious, I call him Sid. I'm from Alabama. We know him by Sid Vicious. But yes, Sid Justice, Psycho Sid. Out of all the people that you've been in the ring with, famous or not famous, who is your, like, well, I'm going to say, because if I was talking to a fan, this is how I'll say, who's your one opponent that you love fighting?
I can't really say. I take every match as it is. I've never really had a favorite opponent. I did like wrestling Ricky Banderas in Puerto Rico, but I wouldn't say he was my favorite opponent. We wrestled a lot. I would like to wrestle him again now that it's like 15 years later, but that's probably not going to happen. But my favorite opponent, there really isn't one. Don't really have one, to be honest with you. I always look at wrestling as just every match, try and have the best match possible.
Well, you brought up Great North Wrestling. That's the name of your company, and that's where you wrestle. And you had a lot of famous people come through Great North Wrestling. Tell us how that got started.
How that got started is Stampede Wrestling in Alberta closed down shortly after Stu Hart died. I went to Puerto Rico. When I came back, there wasn't really anything going on in Alberta. So Alberta is in Montana, is close to Montana for any Americans watching this. Where I live in Ottawa, we're near Syracuse. So I actually am from the other side of the country. So I figured there's nothing really going on in Alberta. I didn't have anything there. I'd broken up with the girlfriend that I had in Alberta. So I'm just like, I'm going to come back to this end of the country. And there wasn't any quality promotions out here. So I decided to start my own promotion. Lanny Poffo actually named it Great North Wrestling. And we've had hundreds of events. We're probably the best known promotion in Canada. We've used stars like Jeff Jarrett, as you mentioned, AJ Styles, Kevin Nash, everybody, almost everybody we've used in Great North Wrestling. Jinder Mahal was from this company as well before he went on to WWE. Harry Smith is our current heavyweight champion, the British Bulldog Jr.
Well, you need to go ahead and take that belt off of him. What's going on? What?
I'm not actually really wrestling anymore. I know you were going to ask me about the Cody Rhodes. I was just really going to accept his challenge because he had the challenge and I wanted to expose it as being a fraud and also get some views out of it. But I'm not really wrestling anymore. I'm focusing on being an interviewer and producing the Great North Wrestling events and helping people, helping book the best matches, and on the days of the events, getting the best backstage footage to use on the Hannibal TV. Unfortunately, because of the lockdown, we had to cancel a bunch of events this year. So that was really disappointing. But hopefully next year they're going to loosen things up and we'll be able to run again.
Well, first off, you need to get back in the ring because you're very good at it. I'm actually love watching your matches. Well, you brought it up. I was gonna bring it up to the end because it's some 2, 3 other things I want to talk about. But the Cody Rhodes incident. You've been sending out videos. Yeah, I mean, there's some crazy videos that you've been sending out. The time of this recording, this is fill everybody in, break everybody into the throw wall. This is recorded sometime in August. I know right now you're watching this, it's probably September or October, but Hannibal has been putting videos out challenging Cody from AEW for his TNT championship because he said it was an open challenge. With that said, you've been putting up some crazy videos, man. My one question is, what would happen if he says, hey, the AEW office calls you up and say, hey, come on down? What would happen?
Well, he's already officially chickened out, so people can say whatever they want. I consider myself the champion via default because, as you said, he said this was an open challenge to any
Yeah.
independent wrestler. I got 7 legends to make videos for me, including Terry Funk, Billy Graham, and Kevin Sullivan, who all feuded with Dusty. Plus, I had Conan, Bushwhacker Luke, and tons of other Jerry Jarrett, who I'm sure you're very well aware of, and Jacques Rougeau, the Mountie himself, who helped train me. They all put videos saying, Cody, you should do this match, but we know you're not going to do it because you know Hannibal would actually beat you, and it's too risky. You'd rather fight the independent wrestlers that are just going to do whatever you say and can't rough you up, whatever. So he didn't do it. He actually used a fan as an excuse, just as Terry Funk said he would. He said he was going to find any excuse. A fan insulted Cody, and Cody's feelings got hurt or whatever, and he said because the fan insulted him, he's not going to do the match. So the last video I put out is actually a rap video with a cartoon of Cody the American Chicken that another fan made for me. See, the fans are actually into it. I even put out a fan video of fans who were sending me videos talking about it, and I've received probably 500 hate messages from his fans. His fans despise me, and it's
Well,
just
whoa,
funny.
whoa, that's not true because I like Cody and I like you. I think I'll watch your YouTube channel. I see. I I hate watching. I know we're running out of time here, but I hate watching shoot interviews because I'm still a fan. And fans today, wrestling fans, they talk like they learn the language that y'all use behind the scenes, and now they use it. And it's like, dude, I don't care about work rate. I'd rather see Hulk Hogan and Kevin Nash before I see Kenny Omega versus some Japanese guy. That's just me. With that said, you know, the Cody thing was very entertaining, especially with you eating the meat. And I honestly, God, thought that AEW was going to call you up and you was actually going to fight Cody. I thought maybe that, you know, they'll give you a shot for the championship, but they didn't. He said no. So, but I would have loved to see you in AEW, honestly.
And if they had put it on live TV without a contract, I could have just taken that belt and hung it right behind me for my updates because I would have taken the extra subscribers that doing that would have given me and just built my own brand further. But they know I don't care about a contract and that I just want to expose Cody Rhodes. So they don't want to put themselves in a situation where they can get embarrassed further. But those videos already have combined tens of thousands of hits over time. Those are going to get even more hits, and fans are going to keep asking that coward about me probably for the rest of his life. So I think it's hilarious.
Last question on the Cody incident because I still got 2 more questions I want to get to you. Uh do you think that maybe they probably considered taking your challenge, but they think that maybe an outside person who's not signed with AEW would probably, you know, do something in the ring that shouldn't have happened, maybe hurt him, try like kind of like Bruno Sammartino and Buddy Rogers, or Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, or Wendy Whipter and the Fabulous Moolah. You think maybe that they thought that maybe you would try something? Or
That was probably it. That was probably it. But I'm not gonna lie. I've said it publicly, just as I'm saying now. I would have definitely considered trying that. I've changed finishes in matches before. That makes wrestling more interesting to me. But I
okay.
don't care. I really don't like the AEW product. I would have had that match. Or this was my option, and you know this option. I gave them two options. One was the mixed match with me and Taylor Hendricks, who's my angel of death,
Right, and
against Cody and Brandy. So this
right.
way they wouldn't have had to put the title on the line. But I don't know what their problem is. They don't want to be embarrassed.
Well, hey, trust me, you're 6'5", 275. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Hey, you ain't nobody to play with, man. I think you know this. Speaking of not playing with you, the video, one of the first times I ever saw you on YouTube was the Lanny Poffo video. If you don't know who Lanny Poffo is, Lanny Poffo was the genius in the WWE. He also is the younger brother of one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time, Macho Man Randy Savage. It has come out that it was quote unquote what wrestlers use as saying that it wasn't real, it was a work, but you had everybody believing that you just beat the hell out of Lanny Poffo. So to fill everybody in, y'all did a match. Lanny comes in, he slaps you on the chest, you put him in a hold. Honky Tonk Man comes in, and it looked so real. Was Honky Tonk Man in it? Like, was he part of the?
Yeah, well, I did there's actually, for anyone that wants like a really detailed version of what happened, just search on YouTube Hannibal shoots on Lanny Poffo incident. I explained it because it's not like we're ever going to fight. He's like 60 something now, and he was too old to be in the ring with me back then, and that was 10 years ago. So now it wouldn't be entertaining at all. But what happened was at that time there was a documentary crew filming me for a documentary they did on me called This Is Hannibal. The crowd was bad that night. We're in the middle of nowhere. They did legitimately lose Lanny's baggage. So he had to wrestle in his clothes.
Yeah, he was in black jeans. That was weird.
Yeah. So we just came up with the idea just because we were actually bored. And it was kind of like, there's 100 people here in the crowd. What can we do to make this more interesting for the documentary cameras? The only people that knew about it were Lanny, Honky, and I, and that's because Lanny insisted on telling Honky. But none of the wrestlers in the dressing room knew, which added a lot to the realism of it. Also, he really did slap me, and I really did take him down and throw the double wrist lock on him. There wasn't anything fake about that. But yeah, what it was is we had hoped that they would have used that footage in the documentary, but what happened was they wanted to make the documentary more serious about overcoming my health issues. They didn't use it. So eventually I said, hey, can I get the footage? Because they didn't use it. So by the time it came out, it had happened like 4 years earlier. It wasn't done to shoot an angle or anything. It was done to try and make a cool scene for the documentary. So I ended up throwing it up on YouTube, and there's
And
3 or 4 versions of it. If you combine all the versions, over 1 million people have seen it.
oh, I've probably seen it 10,000 times, man. It is funny. But when Lanny was doing this, if me and you was gonna shoot a angle, and to professional wrestlers, you see somebody like me talking in y'all's little language. If it's offensive, I apologize. But I'm talking to a wrestler. I want you to understand me. If me and you was gonna talk an angle, I'm gonna want to go over on you. We go backstage. I want to be the guy kicking your ass. Does that make sense? I don't want you to kick my ass. Why would Lanny go through with something like that? Is it just because he's a professional wrestler and this is business, or is it just like,
It
hey,
wouldn't
this?
have been believable for Lanny to go over because what happened is exactly what would have happened, basically. Like, we had to make it believable, and he understood that. And he was happy with it until it got out online. We're actually not friends anymore. We were friends after that, but we're
Mhm.
actually not on speaking terms now because he wanted me to take that down. He didn't like how he looked in it. And I said, I'm not taking it down. That's the best thing you've done since you beat Hulk Hogan on Saturday Night Main Event.
I don't
So it
understand why
remains
he
up.
wanted to take it down. If I mean, what did he think was going to happen? I mean, you purposely get your ass whooped on TV, and then you want to take it down. I mean, that's why, like I said, me and
Yeah.
you was going to shoot an angle. I would want to go over on you, and kind of make it. I know it wouldn't be believable,
It
but
wasn't
I mean,
that though. It wasn't that. He didn't care that he lost. He thought that the fans would take his side and feel bad for him. Where he came off, and I guess when he did autograph conventions, people thought he was an asshole. So that's the part he didn't like, that people thought it was a shoot and that he was really an asshole. That's what he didn't
but
like. It had nothing to do with him not going over.
y'all came out later on. I saw the interview. Y'all came out and said it was work, and it was like, oh, but you fooled a lot of people.
Yeah.
I have one more question, and it's more of a plug. The reason why I requested you to be on the show is because I love your YouTube channel. You interview, like I said, you interview Ronnie Garvin. You interview a lot of Terry
Twice.
Funk.
Two Ronnie Garvin now.
Yeah, Terry Funk. When we mention famous people, that's one of your biggest rappers. That's another video that maybe one day me and you can get into. If you haven't seen it, go to the YouTube Hannibal and Terry Funk. What's the name of the video, Hannibal?
There's a bunch of versions of it, but I think it's Terry Funk Incident.
Okay, check
Yeah.
that video out because Terry Funk, even in his 70s, is still crazy.
We
So
finally retired. He was in his 60s then, and I
he finally
finally
retired.
retired him. Just like I finally retired Abdullah. I am the reason he's in the wheelchair now. I take full credit for that.
Oh, hey man, only reason why I'm laughing at you because I'm scared. I ain't scared of no man, but bottom line is this: you are one of the most entertaining wrestlers I've watched in a very long time. And I was going to ask you more about YouTube page, but honestly, you can tell us more. And is there anything? Tell us more about the YouTube page, but also tell us more. Anything if we want to get in touch with you, see more great. What's
Great North
GNW?
Wrestling, GNW, Great North Wrestling.
Great North Wrestling. Can you tell us more about that and how we can get in touch with you?
Well, it's all on YouTube, and Sheldon Benjamin's another guy we've had so many great wrestlers over the years wrestle for us. Wes Briscoe, tons of huge stars, even Teddy Hart. All those Great North Wrestling matches are at youtube.com/the Hannibal TV. I also have a deal now with PCW Ultra in LA where I'm posting PCW Ultra matches. I just posted one yesterday of Tessa Blanchard versus Jordan Grace. And today I posted the Great Muda and Pentagon Jr. against John Morrison and Sammy Callahan. So there's going to be more working relationship with PCW Ultra and Great North Wrestling, the Hannibal TV, as time goes on, because that's my favorite independent group in the United States. We are on Instagram and Twitter at the Hannibal TV, and I am on Twitter at Devin Hannibal. And if you direct message me, and I know that it's not a spam follow, I'll follow you back. And if you want to contact me, you can contact me on Twitter. I do have Facebook, but I already have a huge waiting list. But we do have a Great North Wrestling Facebook as well. If you search up the Hannibal TV Facebook, but I'm easy to contact, and I always appreciate hearing from the fans, and any fan that messages me, as long as they're polite, they know they'll eventually get a response.
Well, I was one of those fans, and he does respond to you. I also need to go ahead and get that DVD that you got out. You're an amazing wrestler, man. I hope that one day you do get back in the ring. Maybe take that championship belt off Harry Smith.
Maybe I actually understand though. Harry's being like held hostage by MLW right now, and it's unfortunate because he's not getting paid because he only gets paid if he wrestles for them. WWE is interested in him, but his contract with MLW doesn't end till December. So I have a feeling he's going to be back with WWE in probably January. But I hope and pray that we can at least get one more Great North Wrestling match out of him before he leaves. But it depends on the lockdown.
Hey, if you decide to be that opponent, man, put it on YouTube. But ladies and gentlemen, he man, little side note, he told me 30 minutes. He's gave me 42 minutes. So that's the type of guy he is. Hannibal, you're a class act, man. I appreciate you taking the time. And hey, maybe one day we're gonna see you in AEW taking that belt from Cody the right way.
We'll see. I suggest the fans harass them about it if they want to see it. Eventually, you'd think he'd have to have some pride. To me, Terry Funk telling me that you're going to be a coward about it would have got me to do it, but obviously he doesn't care about Terry Funk.
Well, it's going to be entertaining watching. Is that the last of the interview? The segments? Is that it? No more?
I'm not going to push that anymore. I have better stuff to do. I got other interviews tonight. I'm actually supposed to be interviewing Samu of the Head Shrinkers tonight, so I'm going to focus on my interviews. That stuff will be out forever. People will know the truth about Rhodes' challenge, open challenge, which was just a work. We wanted to believe it was legitimate, but if nothing else, I proved it wasn't.
Well, I'm just gonna name drop right here because this is kind of cool. Sean Cannon just texted me, and that's the reason why Sean Cannon from the Karate Kid 3 just texted me. I'm like, yeah, I know, right? It's like Sean Cannon. It's like, wow. Anyway, Hannibal, you get to talk to Samu, and I get to talk to Sean Cannon, I guess. So it's like,
there you go. I love the Karate Kid movies. I'm a huge kickboxing fan and martial arts fan. Yeah, I'm also undefeated in kickboxing. Throw that out there.
Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only Hannibal. Thank you. Stick around. Don't go nowhere. I got one more question for you. Everybody else, subscribe. Get me up to Hannibal's level. And thank you very much for watching. God bless.
Kelsey! Kelsey, you could have got hurt. Why would you do this?
I went to Angel's thrift store where Carolyn's Treasures keeps all their inventory and bought you your favorite ring.
Girl, you must have lost your damn mind.
If you don't like it, why don't I just kick your butt?
Kelsey, I'm sorry.